This is Amateur Faith Night, a podcast where real-life friends talk about real-life religion, where questions are encouraged, doubt is talked about, and following Jesus is our main priority. Let this be a starting place for you to research things and study them out for yourself. God is bigger than all of our questions, and it is okay to not have all of the answers.
Do we change looks? Do I go Yoda?
Yoda?
Or no, this being more like Obi-Wan.
I was thinking, what's the Sith? What's the Sith's name?
This is the Emperor, isn't it?
Yeah, Palpatine. Right? Palpatine? Do I remember?
I don't know. All the old people would see a picture of Gary and be like, oh, it's Jesus.
I am not editing this. If you're listening on Spotify and not watching on Google or on YouTube, you are missing out right now.
Gary's wearing a hoodie. He had his hood up. And he was acting like he was...
just go watch it.
Sometimes you gotta throw lightning bolts out of your fingers.
You cannot describe that.
And then I tried to make a joke about the meme that's always on Facebook, where it's a picture of Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi. And honest to goodness, I see this like twice a year. There'll be some old person that I know be like, say amen if you love Jesus. And I'm like, dude, that's Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's a Jedi.
That's why you cannot believe things that you read on Facebook. Come on, people.
True that.
Some of these people aren't really all that old. They're like 60, so it's like, you should know Star Wars.
I did see on Facebook that a lady prayed to a statue of Shrek thinking it was Buddha.
I just almost spit out my coffee. First off, question number one. Yeah. Where is there a statue of Shrek?
It was over in Indonesia.
Why'd they have a statue of Shrek, though?
It was just like a little figurine.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking giant statue of Shrek somewhere, and I'm like, where?
A small figurine.
So it was like a McDonald's toy.
Yeah.
Oh, my Lord.
Oh, my God.
Trying to find out.
Some people.
That want Buddha.
Okay.
So here we are.
Here we are, and we're talking about legalism.
All rise.
Yeah. And why are we talking about legalism?
Because we watched the new Night Court and it sucked.
Okay, well, it did suck, but...
You guys fell for that, huh?
Yeah.
I didn't want to watch it from the get. It was weird because the lady that plays... What's-her-face on Big Bang Theory is starring in it, but she doesn't use her voice from the Big Bang Theory, so it really threw me off, which is her real voice, so it's actually kind of sad.
So now she's acting?
Well, right, not really, because this is her real voice before she was acting.
All right.
I can't
Bernadette. Her name was Bernadette.
Yes. Okay. Anyways, that's neither here nor there or why we're talking about legalism. Actually, the reason why we're talking about this is because someone and I recently were in a discussion about words that can be triggering for people who maybe have left an organization like the United Pentecostal Church or Conservative Holiness Movement or like Independent Fundamental Baptists, things like that, where words don't have the same meaning within those groups as they do mainstream or what they actually mean. For instance, let's think of a good one, like holiness, for instance. If you had asked me 10 years ago what holiness was, I would have told you it's the way I dress. It's my hair. It's my skirt. It's the outward appearance of something inside. That would be what my definition of holiness would be. It turns out that's not right. Holiness is God and everything embodying God. And the only reason why we have any holiness at all is because of the cross. It has absolutely zero to do with my clothes. Modesty. That's another one. That's a huge, huge one that I would love to do a couple podcasts about. Turns out modesty, again, is not the length of your skirt so much as it is not sticking out in a crowd, not drawing attention to yourself, not flashing money and status. So
showing the bottom of your high-heeled shoes so people know that they have a red bottom.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That was a picture recently. The red bottom shoes, they're super expensive. Anyways.
I didn't know this either, but they're like $3,000 for a pair of red bottom shoes.
They're not $3,000. They're like $1,100 for a pair of heels.
Oh, I'm sorry. $1,100.
And yeah, someone who claims to be modest was dressed very modestly, but made sure to put their shoe up just at the right angle so you can see the red bottom of their shoes that they paid $1,100 for. Anywho.
Red spray paint at Lowe's is like $7 a can.
They were at Bot.
Okay, we're not mentioning any names. Or
No, we're not, but I'm just telling you.
Information, but yes, that actually did happen. So
we're judging their judginess.
Yes. I actually have a blog called that. Do you remember that? That was like years ago when I wrote that. Anyhow, I'm just giving examples of words that have the meanings have been twisted. So one of the words that gets thrown around a lot after you leave, like I didn't hear it as much when we were in, but I heard it a lot after we left. And with the definition that I thought I knew wasn't actually the correct definition of the word, and that is legalism.
So what was it you thought it was?
So I always thought legalism was strictly defined as the Pharisees. I was like, well, we're not the Pharisees. Those were the group of people that tried to kill Jesus. Like, I didn't like correlate that to my life at all in any way.
So you didn't see yourself as a Pharisee.
Right.
So legalists were a bad person, but you didn't see yourself as a Pharisee.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So then, and in those groups, they also say like, oh, well, people say we're legalistic, but we're actually biblical. And so I think like a lot of times your view of legalism is skewed. Maybe that you don't really know exactly what it means. You've heard the term thrown around a lot, like, oh, I came from a legalistic group, or it's a legalistic mindset that ideology is legalism. But maybe you don't really know what it means, or you haven't really researched it. So I thought that it would be a good topic to just kind of mesh out a little bit, because I mean, if you don't know what the term actually means, you don't know if you're in that, you don't know if your church is legalistic or you are behaving in a legalistic manner. Or, you might not know what people are referring to when they throw that word around. So I say all that to say I did do a little bit of research, and I know you did too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so did I.
And Gary came completely prepared.
I'm totally prepared.
Completely prepared to be Emperor Palpatine.
What is it really, Emperor Palpatine? Is that who it is for real? Did I get it right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So legalism.
Tell us what it means.
Legalism exists when people attempt to secure righteousness in God's sight by doing good works. Legalists believe that they can earn or merit God's approval and favor by performing requirements of their own law.
That's really close to the definition I came up with. I do like that one better, though.
Yeah, me too.
You didn't even hear mine.
Yeah, let's hear
what are you
yours.
talking about?
I'll be the judge of this.
Legalism is defined as dependence on moral law rather than personal religious faith.
Run that by me again.
Are you kidding me right now?
No, I'm sorry.
Legalism is defined as dependence on moral law rather than on personal religious faith.
Well, that's good too. I like that.
It actually, when I got to thinking about it and breaking it down, I was thinking in my head, like, what is the opposite of legalism? What is the opposite of believing that things that you can do will save you or give you more grace in God's sight? And that is faith, because faith in the cross is what actually saves you, not your traditions.
Legalism is a lack of faith in the work of the cross.
Exactly. So, exactly. So I don't know. That's what I came up on.
Well, I mean, to kind of go along with the point of legalism is lack of the faith of the work of the cross, we see Paul many times in his epistles writing about the fact that you've got Judaizers coming in who are believers. I believe there's a time in the book of Acts where they actually say a group of Judaizers were believers, but they were wanting converted Gentiles to be circumcised. So there are legalists that are believers. Mm-hmm. However, they're wanting you to abide by their own rules and restrictions. And we see this starting in the Old Testament going all the way up through the New Testament, because you've got the Pharisees, the very strict Judaizers, who not only took the law of Moses, but they made their own commandments, which wasn't written scripture, but it was oral tradition. Mm-hmm. And they would put that upon the people as like being sinful if they did or didn't do these things. And Christ even spoke against it.
Yep. Matthew chapter 23 and in Luke chapter 11.
Boom.
Yes, he
You
did.
guys rehearsed this.
We did not. We were just that in sync.
Wow.
We're one
That's
flesh.
just scary.
I feel the energy.
Anyhow, yeah.
Halamashanda.
Oh, that's the air conditioner.
Not the air conditioner. It's like 30 degrees outside. It's definitely the
One
heat.
of these, hey, everybody, we got a vent right here. Maybe one of these days I'll put gold dust in it, so it'll be like Bethel when the vent gets on. The gold dust will come down.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, it'd be
Yeah,
great.
and that would be fun to clean up. I would definitely make the kids do that.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to legalism.
Go ahead.
Well, okay. So when I was thinking about this, I did read those chapters that we brought up, Luke chapter 11 and Matthew chapter 23. And Jesus is very firm in his words. It's almost like how Paul was in Galatians, to the Galatians, like, oh, foolish Galatians. Like,
Who bewitched you?
Who bewitched you? What the heck is the matter with you people? But Jesus said woe to them and called them vipers. Like, he was pretty ticked off.
Yeah, Matthew 23 is the chapter of the 7 woes. Jesus woed the Pharisees 7 times. Whoa, you jacked up. Whoa, you messed up.
We call that the Keanu Reeves chapter.
The Keanu Reeves?
Whoa.
Whoa.
Oh my gosh. But I gotta rein you guys in just a little bit. But in reading that, just because this is how my brain works, this has nothing to do with like being super like a theologian or smart. It's just because I was curious. I was wondering who the Pharisees actually were and where that word originated from. Like, why did they call themselves that? So basically, they were members of a party, like kind of a religious spiritual party, or like a political spiritual party. What's the word I'm looking for? Political religious party?
Sect?
Yeah.
Ooh, is that like where we mix nationalism and Christianity?
There you go. Anywho, We're not going to go there either. That followed traditions. They followed traditions, not necessarily scripture. So not that their traditions were bad by any means, and not that, you shouldn't have traditions, but it was at the fact that they followed these traditions so closely that they imposed them on other people as salvific. But the Hebrew, I found this interesting, and I'm going to see where you take this. And I did not tell Jeremy this earlier because I wanted to see his actual reaction. Because I told this to my daughter, and she went exactly where I went. So I'm pulling this out of, I should have cited my sources. That's really bad. I did Google it. And there's a couple different websites I went to.
It's on the internet, so it's got to be
It is.
true.
No, well,
Totally true.
I fact checked it by a couple different sources.
On the internet?
True. Okay. The Hebrew root meaning of the word Pharisee means to separate or detach.
Ooh, we're a chosen priesthood.
I knew you would go there. I thought that was a little ironic that the word Pharisee actually means to separate or detach. And, Jesus calls them out for making their phylacteries long and they're wide and their tassels long. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like they were using those things so people knew who they were. So, I'm more spiritual than you. So this is what I look like and this is what I'm wearing, to make themselves separate or detached from other people.
To stand out. Which is not modest.
It's not.
So let me make sure I'm breaking this down and I'm understanding this. And Gary, follow along because you're smarter than I am.
Chicka. Break it down. Yeah.
Break it down. So you're saying it's kind of like if you and I were at the beach and you're wearing a long skirt down to your ankles and a shirt down to your wrist and your collar's up to your chin, and I'm there in my 3-piece suit. And the kids, they get off easy. Jocelyn gets to wear a sundress. So, are we standing out? Is it that kind of stand out? Like, we want people to know that we're holy?
Apparently.
Oh, okay.
That's what I got out of that.
Gary, did you follow? Am I getting that?
Yeah, you're standing out to be holy
Yeah.
because you're dressing different.
Yeah.
And we're actually talking about legalism, but modesty goes hand in hand with this a lot.
So
as far as their word of modesty.
This whole legalism thing and kind of what you guys are talking about and like the whole earning your way into, or, this, to me, it's a human quality. It's a carnal quality, human nature.
Yeah.
And the opposite of what kind of Jesus teaches. It's on the opposite spectrum. So it's just fascinating that you can be a follower of Christ and you look at what Jesus, Jesus's teachings are very, I would call them simple because it's, love, and there's not a whole lot there. He says a lot and it's awesome, but when it boils down to it, it's a simpler message. But it's a battle. This carnal battle that we have as mankind is so hard to overcome. What you're talking about with the Pharisees is an extreme version of it because you can see how people can get caught up in it, where maybe they're in that time and age and time, those are the only people that had the resources to learn more, or they were the people teaching in the synagogue. So obviously, if you're not really following, and at that time they didn't believe in Jesus anyway, they just thought he was some dude. So if you're not following what he's talking about and you're just kind of feeding into each other, you're caught in this like echo chamber of your buddies. It's human nature to start getting your tassels a little longer, dressing up a little, because look at me, I'm the one telling you how this goes.
Standing on the street corners praying.
Right. So
yeah.
And it hasn't changed. I mean, it's just a different version of it in today's world than it was all those years ago.
You talk about Jesus's message being very simplistic, but really, when it boils down to it, loving your neighbor is hard.
That's
that's a difficult quality to possess.
The instruction is like it's not. He doesn't give like these really detailed instructions with subsections and stuff. He gives us, like you said, it's there, but that is hard to do.
Yeah,
really hard.
And it's a simplistic message, but you want to look past it because it's so simplistic that you think that it's not like you. There has to be more, and that's what I remember sitting on the beach and on our vacation after we left the UPC, like thinking there has to be more. Like this can't be this easy.
Yeah.
And it turns out it really is. And I know what you were talking about. You're talking about the beach. So there was a Facebook post a couple years ago. It actually stirred me to write a couple of different blogs about the same post. In my blogs, I did call out the person who did it. If you are interested in that, you can go find it. I think I called it like the oxymoron of modesty because it's the exact opposite of what modesty actually means, because she made this really long Facebook post with a picture of herself talking about how modest she was and how proud.
Called attention to the modesty?
Yes.
She was on a cruise and she was on a beach and she was wearing a skirt on the beach and on a cruise. It was like one of the swim skirts that like go to your knee with the leggings underneath that go past your knee. And which, whatever, if that's what you want to wear, more power to you. And that's not even where my argument is here. It really had zero to do with her actual clothes. My issue was she made this really long Facebook post bragging about how modest she was because people were looking at her. And she's like, all these people that are wearing next to nothing are looking at me on the beach and I'm, representing Christ, yada, yada, yada. Look at me. I'm so proud of myself and my holiness here. And that's where I'm like, really? That's not what modesty means. Modesty does not mean that you want everyone to be looking at you because you're standing out. That you want to fit in.
That almost has the same attitude of like I think it's in Luke where you've got the guy praying in the synagogue, God, I'm not like the tax collector over there. I give, I do this, I do that, I do that. I'm self-righteous. Right.
Look at me and look how holy and modest I am compared to all these sinners over here that are wearing swimsuits like the rest of the people on the beach do, like normal people.
Who aren't sticking out.
Who aren't sticking out in a crowd. They're not drawing attention to themselves. They're not trying to be like, hey, look at me. The majority of people who are out there are just out there to have a good time with their families. They're not... trying to draw attention to themselves. I'm not saying that there aren't people that try to draw attention to themselves by wearing a skimpy swimsuit. I'm not saying that. Don't take it to the extreme here. But I will say, when you're also trying to get people to look at you for the exact opposite reason, that's
the same thing.
The same thing. It's the same thing. So.
And we know that legalism leads to pride.
Right. That's right.
Pride leads to arrogance. And arrogance will eventually lead to contempt of fellow Christians. Mm-hmm. Because they're not as good as you are.
Right. And, the people on the beach, some of them might have been really good, solid Christians. And she completely judged them. And, and I say all that to not sit here and make fun of her clothes or to say, like, she shouldn't have worn that. Like, if you feel comfortable wearing that, then by all means do it. Where legalism comes in is where you try to make other people do the same thing you're doing without there being a biblical explanation.
Right.
And that's what legalism means. When you are running the hamster wheel, doing all the works, doing all the things in order to earn God's grace and God's favor.
Right. And it fails me as to where it's in the scripture. But there is a set of scriptures that tells us that if salvation could come by the law or by doing works.
Galatians.
Okay. Then
Chapter 2.
Then Christ died for no reason.
Verse 21.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's on your phone.
I will never forget that verse. That verse was life-changing.
Hell of a cheat sheet.
Right? I know. Forever. But I mean, seriously, and that's why that is tattooed right here. It's so I remember that verse because that verse was huge for me when we were saying that this can't be this easy. Like there has to be rules. There has to be, all of these things we have to follow. And it's Galatians 2:21. It said that if righteousness could come through a law, then Christ died for no reason.
I keep thinking of this verse when our old church, when the kids were in like itty bitty kid school, when they had these kid songs. And one of the verses was, "You can't earn it. You might not deserve it, but favor makes you go up." And it was like the little catch line. Like,
yeah.
You can't earn it. You might not deserve it, but favor. And it was this little kid song we used to listen to all the time. And it just pops in my head when you guys are saying that.
But that's true. Yeah. That's exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And the beginning part of Galatians 2:21 says that I do not reject God's grace. Yeah. So I think when we are leaning on ourselves and doing all of these works, we are rejecting the gift of God's grace.
It's so hard though. I mean, I'm just being honest. I'd fall into it all the time.
We all do.
I'm so bad at it, thinking that that they're basically earning it. Whatever it is, you tithe more, you serve more, you read more, whatever it is you think you're doing biblically, more of. Just to try to make up for the fact that
you haven't been doing it.
Right.
But you don't.
But
there's no. But you don't need to do that.
Scriptural. I mean, there is scripture that doesn't matter. That doesn't count. Right. I mean, it's not
it's the attitude behind it. Like if you're doing it out of
like guilt
compulsion.
or just thinking that you're going to earn something, then it's not that you want to do those things because because
God saved you, because
you're compassionate
because
for something,
you want to do it because it's a relationship with Him,
right?
Kind of like I do good things for Jennifer.
You do
not because.
She told me about the one cool thing you did for her those years ago.
Yeah. No, but it's not to make her like me, but I do it because we have a relationship and because I love her.
Right.
So same thing with Christ. We do good works not to earn His favor, His merit, or His love, or His grace, or compassion, but we do it because He's already shown His mercy and compassion to us, and we do it really just out of, once again, our relationship love for Him.
Isn't it, I don't know how to word this. It's such a direct, it's just such a conflict of interest as far as human nature and then accepting this, that there's nothing, that He's already taken care of it. He's done, He's sacrificed this so you don't have, it's so hard to marry those concepts.
Right.
Like it's just.
But I think where that attitude will end up leaving you, and I think legalism in general, where that attitude leads is, like Jeremy said, it leads to arrogance and pride because inevitably you start judging other people because you say, well, I've been doing this and this and this, and I've got this going on, and that's where the problem lies. It's not in the acts of doing those things. It's not that, wearing a skirt makes you, it's not that that's wrong.
Had she went to the beach that day and not wrote a blog about it and called attention to it, and she just went to the beach and
minded her business and not
minded her, then 100%. But it was the above and beyond of calling attention and trying to make it a big deal and look at me, and that's where your pride and your
right, and putting pride in the fact that people were staring at her.
Right.
Yeah. And again, nothing wrong with what she was doing or what she was wearing. It was the attitude behind it. And what was the purpose behind it? Yeah. Right, exactly. And I'm not trying to judge her attitude, but she made it abundantly clear in that Facebook post exactly how she felt. So, I'm just repeating her own words there. I don't know. I feel like it's a very fine line because people will be like, well, you need to read your Bible. You need to go to church. You need to do all of these things. And that's true. All of these things are good and healthy for a good relationship with Christ. But the problem ensues when you start imposing your beliefs on other people. And when you start measuring yourself against other people based off of these things. And when you start depending on these things as part of your salvation experience, that's where legalism is. Well, that's the danger of it.
I'm going to mention what was said, and I'm going to mention this person by name because it's readily available. One of the UPC's premier speakers, Jeff Arnold, at least he was at one time, at BOT because of the times. He said years ago, I want to say it was somewhere 92, 93, 94, right around the reaffirmation of faith where the whole ordeal was blown up within UPC. But he told all the ministers there at BOT, the reason why we're mad about the denominational Christian world not following what we believe is because if we have to put a dime in the meter, they should have to as well. He goes, we have a bad attitude about what we do because we don't even understand why we do it. And there's a lot of what he had to say in that message that I feel was wrong. But there was a whole lot of that he said in that message. I was like, wow, it gives me hope that maybe there's some people out there that are starting to get it. Because when he openly admitted.
But okay, 90s was like 30 years ago. I'm just pointing that out.
Hey, let's not judge if we graduated in 94.
Oh my God, you graduated in 94?
Yeah.
You are so old.
But still, my thing is, though, he openly admitted in front of a large forum of ministers, the reason why we get angry with the denominational Christian world that they don't follow our standards is because if we have to do it, they should have to too. He was basically saying we're doing this for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe we'll put a link to that message.
If I can find it.
I can find it.
Okay. Well, remind me because I'm going to forget by the time I edit this and actually post it probably. But yeah. And I wanted to kind of break that down a little bit and maybe explain kind of what. So when people who speak out against the UPC or different churches like that, we'll call them legalistic churches. And a lot of times that term gets kind of thrown around. So if people are unfamiliar with it or maybe have, not a very good idea what it means, or you have the church's version of what that means, I just kind of wanted to iron that out. Kind of like when we did the episode about reprobate mind. Like that does not mean what you were taught it was in that.
Yeah, that looked like a fun episode.
Yeah, Gary wasn't here for that. Sorry. That was actually like one night, I don't know, you were doing something and Jeremy and I were like, we're talking about this, so we might as well go record it. We're already having a conversation.
Having the home studio, right?
Right, yeah. Right. I don't know if this qualifies as a studio. Sure, this is my office, and it's pretty sad right now because we have the desks like pushed together so we could sit. It's bad. Anyway, if anybody wants to send us money to remodel,
please, that'd be great. Put a link.
All right, GoFundMe.
Link, yeah.
We'll send you an anointed prayer cloth if you do some money.
Oh, that is a lie. We will not do that.
We'll melt snow and bless it.
Right.
It's fascinating. The legal, the whole just regimented approach. salvation or just making it something part of your life and tiptoeing that fine line of, is this out of seeking God and, or is it just, all right, I got to go read, or, you can veer off in either direction.
Oh, yeah, it's easy to do so.
And I mean, there is definitely spiritual discipline.
Yeah.
There are times that I might not want to sit and study or read.
Right.
And I would like to sit here and say that I overcome that every single time, but I don't, because I'm human and I am weak.
Well, I thought you were perfect.
I know, right?
You said that one of the episodes that you were pretty much perfect.
I'm like Mary Poppins.
Yeah.
Practically perfect.
No, it's the human nature aspect of just salvation is hard to overcome. Mm-hmm. I mean, anger. I mean, just all that, it's challenging at times.
And I think it's very hard to believe when you sit down and think about it that God, who is the sovereign being that you've never seen, never met, is all-encompassing, all-powerful, everywhere, all the time, is, number one, real. Mm-hmm. Number two, he actually cares about humans enough that he would send his son to suffer and to experience all of the human emotions and the worst part of humanity and die because of it. And because of that reason, we're saved.
And another fascinating part about it is, if you think about when he says, we're made in his image, it's like he has these qualities and traits as well. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This human nature side of him, like that's part of him also, because we were made in his image.
Right.
So obviously it's not quite like human, but like just the level of you can use the word evolution when you're talking about God.
Yes.
Like a being of his stature having similar, human nature qualities, because we're creating his image and he's overcome them or whatever word you want to use, however his existence is.
I mean,
it's just part of his DNA also.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, we're created in his image. We're able to think. We're able to reason. We're able to create things.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't create them out of nothing like you can.
But it's that... But
we have the ability to create. We have emotions. We feel pain. We have fear. We get angry. We see that even in the Old Testament where God the Father, he showed emotions.
Right.
So...
Yeah, it's just fascinating.
It is. I mean, and sitting down and that was, one thing when you're UPC, a lot of times they mock or make fun of easy believism, as they call it. Churches who believe that your greasy grace, easy believism, your salvation falls on faith alone. And when you sit down and really think about the whole scope of everything, it's not very easy to believe that. That takes a lot of faith.
Yeah.
And if you have that much faith, I feel like when you try to add things that you're doing to the mix, you're insulting God. Like, he's the maker of the universe. Like what do you think that you can give back? He
doesn't need that extra whatever
no,
from you. Yeah.
He doesn't. And, you do those things out of love. Like Jeremy said, a relationship with him, not because you're trying to get in his good graces.
Yeah.
And I honestly think sometimes it starts out that way for people. Like they honestly did find God. It starts out that way, but they just get wrapped up in the human part of it and the pride and the arrogance and the, comparing.
And I can say this for myself too. I mean, you think about God and you think about you try to comprehend and I don't think a lot of people do that, and they just ascribe these human qualities to him, thinking that it's that simple with him. It's like, if I just do these couple of extra things, or if I just do this, that'll make up for they're throwing these human traits on him to where he doesn't need it.
Well, I think that's one of the problems with legalism too, is exactly that. When you are trying to work to earn God's favor, your understanding of his love, mercy, grace, and compassion is
skewed.
Skewed. And because of that, because you have a skewed view of God, who is your Heavenly Father, you're going to then have a skewed view of your fellow Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to have compassion and mercy because you don't believe God has compassion and mercy.
That's very true. I was actually thinking about that the other day. I don't even remember what was happening, but about how I thought of God before. I always thought of God as this big tyrant that was always out to get me, always, waiting for me to fail, basically. Any small infraction that I did, I thought God was just ready to bounce on me. Oh, it's because, so I'm trying to get a new job. So I had applied for this position for a job that I really think that I want. But I didn't tell anybody. I only told a few people after the fact because I didn't want to jinx it, and I don't want to get my hopes up because I feel like if I get excited about it, God's going to be like, nah, no, you're not going to get it now. And I know that's messed up. That's so messed up that I would think that God would just
a remnant of your
not give it to me because I'm excited about something and just shoot me down. That's how, but it is. That's how I viewed God, in my own thinking. And I still carry that with me, obviously, because I'm still having those thoughts of I don't want to get super excited about anything because God's just going to be like, no, you're fine. You don't need that.
Well, I can't tell you how many times growing up from probably the age of 4 to 22-ish that I heard a specific minister say, God's not some cosmic teddy bear.
Right.
He's basically, he would never say that God isn't full of mercy, love, and grace, but he would spin it, and he would use the words, God's not your cosmic teddy bear, kind of like he's ready to get you.
Right. You need to be fearful and not in a respectful kind of way. You need to be fearful and God's
afraid.
Yeah. Right. He's going to squash you at any minute.
I think you just came up with a really cool band name.
Cosmic teddy bear.
Yeah.
Do you know that our kids, they want to do a podcast called, what did Jordan say? Something pickles. Sun-dried pickles.
No, he said a band.
No. Him and Ethan want to do a podcast called Sun-dried pickles.
That's
it sounds like a 90s alternative band.
I don't know where they came up with that, but
who knows with those two.
Right. Also true. That was off topic, but anyway.
So you're always waiting for God to smote you?
I am.
To be smited?
I don't know if you should sit this close to me.
Smoted? Watch out.
But how dumb is that I'm afraid to tell anybody that I applied for this position that I think I want because I'm worried that God's just going to be like, you're excited? Okay, you're not getting it then.
You could go the opposite direction and just claim it, right?
Right. Sure. That is true. And then what's ironic is that Jeremy and I grew up under that pastor that talked about how God was ready to smite you basically at any moment. And he's not a cosmic teddy bear and he's not worried about your wants and dreams and feelings at all. I'm not saying that God's going to give you everything you want just because he's a magical genie, but we did.
He's in a genie in a bottle, baby.
But then we did go to a different UPC church after that, who the minister was very word of faith and name it and claim it, and
snag it and tag it.
God is your genie, in a bottle. So that is ironic, and they're both UPC ministers, so that just goes to show the different
ends of the
spectrum.
Street.
Pretty close. They're within 20 miles of each other.
Listen, I'll have to tell you something later, but yeah. Yeah. So I don't know.
I think as far as legalism is concerned, I see it as extremely easy to get into, to go down that path as a Pharisee or just because of man's nature.
Right.
It leads to the dark side.
Anger is
why
good. Feel the smoteness.
Master Yoda, tell us what the dark side leads to.
Wow. Kelly's so lucky.
Meatloaf, Mom!
Okay.
Jen's gonna punch us when the camera's off.
By the way, don't forget, conference coming up. the end of July.
So are you wrapping this up now? Are you done with this?
Yeah, because we went off the rails. We jumped the shark.
You have. That's true.
Unless you have more to say.
I really don't. It's fine. It's all fine.
No, I mean, this is, you're in the middle. You control this whole thing.
Right,
We're
right.
just on the
Clearly
side.
I don't.
Yeah.
But okay. Yep. Conference.
Yep. What's the name of the conference?
Call to Freedom.
Call to Freedom. Be there. Cultish, Berean Holiness, and us, Amateur Faith Night. Mm-hmm. And a lot of other cool people will be there too.
Yeah. Thank you.
Come out, see us. We want to see you. Get your tickets.
Yeah.
Kids' seats are not $10.
No, they are not. And that is something that is on the website and very made abundantly clear. It's not really a kid-friendly facility. I'm just throwing that out there because we've had a lot of questions about that.
Yeah. A lot of corporal punishment if those kids show up.
Yeah, there is no cosmic teddy bears.
No, there is a pond on the property. There aren't any rooms to like take your kids out to
There's
if
also
you need to.
In-ground swimming pool.
Right, there's an in-ground swimming pool on the property. There is big pond. There's a lot of just hazardous things for children, and so that is one of the things.
Where's it at? It's in Kentucky,
it's
right?
in Simpsonville, Kentucky. Yes.
Yeah, so there's large birds of prey too. So young kids could be snatched and carried off.
Like a pterodactyl.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
See, we
yes.
they're not even, the rails aren't even close anymore.
Okay.
We're tumbling on the hill.
So if you want to like and subscribe, I mean, do it. Bye.